Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today, and it's time for one of those videos where we all just really hardcore disagree with one another because no one really knows what anyone feels about any particular showcase. Like, for some games, they work for you. For others, they don't work at all. We all have differing opinions on these. For me, I would say, I'm not going to bury the lead, bit of a roller coaster. There were some interesting ones that stand out. There were some that I think were hype potential, but there'll be more hype once I learn more about the game on a deeper level as we get closer to the launch of it. But a lot of the things I really liked out of this Xbox partner preview really came in the form of things that were already announced, such as your Like a Dragon pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, or your Wu Chang Fallen Feathers. We'll talk about them individually, but a lot of the stuff I really liked here. I knew about Mouse was another one. We'll talk about it all, but overall, the new stuff that was here, I think, has potential. There's a few duds in here for me, but I would define it as like an average show, solid show in the middle. You know, for Xbox, they just hit us with 2 in the last couple of weeks if you count Tokyo Game Show, where we just got a bunch of other announcements, and they even had a great-looking JRPG in there called Threads of Time. So we've been seeing a lot of Xbox lately, a lot of announcements. This is their third-party focused showcase. So we have a lot of games to talk about, but before those games, I want to tell you about another game in today's sponsor. The following video is brought to you by New World Eternum. New World Eternum is available now on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. For those unaware, it's an action RPG set on the supernatural island of Eternum, featuring skill-based dynamic combat, and it's one I've had my eye on for a few months now, and I'm here to tell you a little bit more. This is a game that you can go at it solo or bring some friends along for co-op. It's really whatever you prefer. Just keep in mind, though, it is cross-play, so it doesn't matter where your friends are, they can join in on the fun. And with the amount of quests the game offers, and there's a lot with how big the world is, you will be plenty busy with things to do. You can spec out your character however you desire, as it's a game focused on gear and upgrading said gear. From the bang for your buck to the beautiful world that you can explore, you should at the very least put New World Eternum on your radar. Again, it's available right now for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. Shout out to New World Eternum for sponsoring today's video. All right, first one up is Alan Wake 2, The Lake House. This is arriving on October 22nd. This showcase begins and ends with Remedy, so this won't be the last we speak of them. But when it comes to Alan Wake 2, I have to be honest, I have not played this yet. And I think it'll still be a little while longer before I get into it because I love what I see of the game. But after I am just now finishing Silent Hill 2, that game absolutely cooks my emotions. And I would love to play another survival horror game. But right now, as I mentioned, I'm absolutely cooked. So I want to take some time, refresh before I get into this game here. But this expansion looks awesome because of the enemy design. Like having this alien Romulus-like creature step out of a painting that it was blending into was really cool, really creepy, and so I'm very excited about that. I've heard that the Alan Wake 2 screen flashes are not a pleasure to sit through. You know, they really get a good jump scare out of you. I'm not the biggest fan of jump scares. I like good, authentic horror that just gnaws away at me and gradually scares me over time. But nonetheless, very excited to check this one out with its expansions eventually because this looks really good. After this, we saw a new reveal, speaking of Silent Hill 2, from Bloober Team, who revealed Kronos: The New Dawn coming 2025. Here's the best thing I can say here, is that, number one, the trailer is pretty cool, the idea is pretty cool, but I've been here before with Bloober Team. I've covered their games since really like the medium, when I was just starting to get more into Xbox coverage, and I remember seeing that and going like, this looks like a really awesome idea, and they were bringing in Akira Yamaoka, composer of Silent Hill, and I was like, perfect, like this is going to be awesome. And famously, I was not a big fan of the medium at all. And then I started to realize, wow, Bloober Team has not made a game I've really liked ever. But it's so funny how recency bias can do its thing, because I'm really loving Silent Hill 2. Like, I'm talking Game of the Year love. And I see this game with the Bloober Team logo, and normally when I see a logo, I shudder away from the screen. I'm like, oh, piss break time. And now I went, what are they cooking? And that's the big difference here, right? So they have now opened my mind. They've opened my eyes to like, all right, you have good level designers. I was talking about it with my buddy Gene Park. He put it out perfectly in our episode of Defining Duke. You know, they have great level designers. You see some of the new written segments in Silent Hill 2. You're like, okay, they handled a cult classic very well in the writing department. The visuals are great. The mocap in Silent Hill 2 is unlike anything I've really seen. Just the visual acting is so fantastic. So I'm like, okay, I know this is like their passion project. They've always been deeply inspired by Silent Hill 2. So you have to keep that in mind. And I don't want to get too carried away. But I say all of this to say that I saw this trailer and went, I'm interested. I'm curious on what they're doing. It kind of gave me a touch of Dead Space vibes with the way like the weapon transformed on this creature you're playing as hand. You got the briefest snippet of gameplay at the very end of this trailer, just a character walking in the world, showing you like this is a real game. No combat, unfortunately, no feel for what the game is whatsoever, but it looks like it's using probably the same tech that was used to build Silent Hill 2. And I don't think this will be the last we hear from Bluebird Team, because the rumor is right now that they're doing a Silent Hill 3 remake, and Silent Hill 3 goes back to, you guessed it, Silent Hill, the town itself, where the assets are already made from Silent Hill 2. So I feel like with all of that in mind, you're probably going to see a lot of them between this game and then eventually when Silent Hill 3 remake is announced. But nonetheless, game looks interesting on a conceptual level. The next game we saw here is Blindfire. This is an early access game available today. It's a first-person shooter that removes light in the game. That's how a lot of it is played, is like kind of shooting around in the dark. And what we got here was a heavily scripted in-engine preview that I think kind of in the in-engine preview looked a lot like a VR game, but doesn't really play like one. This was the least convincing trailer you could put out for a game that's dropping today. Like, the example I used when we were talking about Defining Duke is like, imagine if I'm thinking of like shadow drop titles, right? Like games that are like, we're out today. Like imagine if like, Hades 2 was like, just hid everything. And they're like, by the way, we're out today. Or Metroid Prime Remaster was like a title card. And they're like, we're out today. Or you got an in-engine preview of Hi-Fi Rush. And it was just like this very conceptual feel of the game. And they're like, hey, we're out today. It's like, does that really build confidence that the game that's out today in early access, you didn't even really show gameplay for? And this game could be amazing, I guess. I know really nothing about it. But that's the thing, is the trailer didn't inform me enough. It's out today, and it feels like you hid the game from me with the trailer. So, I don't know. Not really the most convincing look, but in the terms of if we're just grading a showcase, this to me was all right, like I guess this is what I imagine it being like, but this is not what I'm going to play. The next game we saw here was Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. It got its release date moved up a week to February 21st, 2025. So now the stranglehold on Avowed gets a little tighter. I've been predicting that Avowed is going to get a delay, because if the reason was back in when they were supposed to release in November, that they were like, hey, we're delaying because there's a lot of games here, the situation is much worse for them now here in February, where I think if what they said was true, I'm going to trust them that it is, they should probably delay Avowed again to give it a little more room to breathe in a very crowded stretch in February. But I also viewed this Like a Dragon game as a bit of a challenge to Ubisoft. I was thinking this when I saw it, like, oh, this Black Flag coded game that also has very cool Yakuza gameplay. It looks amazing, by the way. Just on a side note, like the new locations, the pirate gameplay looks so cool, so arcadey. But you move a little closer to Ubisoft, who's struggling now and is about to drop an Assassin's Creed game. And the rumor is, as we've covered here on the channel, like Black Flag remakes coming up. I don't know. I could be reading too deep into it. Could be making a mess of a situation that doesn't exist. But I view it kind of as like puffing your chest out, like get a little closer to kind of your competition. Like a lot of people looking at this going, oh, it's a Yakuza game that's like Black Flag, but now you're really close to Ubisoft and their new Assassin's Creed game at the same time. So I view it as a little bit bold to move up, especially in a tight window. They're going for it. They're swinging hard, and shout out to the way they reuse assets in these games. It's brilliant the way they just continue to pump these out. Like we've got 3 Yakuza games in just a little bit over a year. In Infinite Wealth, a full mainline title, but then you get Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, and before that we got Like a Dragon, A Man Who Erased His Name. So I just want to go on my Yakuza pilgrimage as soon as possible. There's so many great games in the franchise. I have played Kiwami 1 and 2 as well as Like a Dragon, so I have still 0, 3 through 6 to go through, and then I'm already caught up on all the modern titles. But it's such a long journey, so I'll get to it. I'm still working on Final Fantasy 14. I'm caught up on Trails now, so we're doing okay, but I'm going to take a little break before I get into my next pilgrimage. Anyway, Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii looks awesome. After this, we also saw Mouse PI for Hire. This releases in 2025 on Xbox, and I just love the visuals for this. I haven't really had a chance to talk about it on the channel, but I think this game just looks wonderful. It's a game we've known about for a while, though. It went viral because of its art style, very much inspired by the old school Disney cartoons. I love how like grisly and gritty it is, and like its voiceover for the trailer. The game just has a great feel. It reminds me a little bit of High on Life, where High on Life was not a great first-person shooter at all, but it was still kind of entertaining to play because of the dialogue and just how immature it was. And so I got a kick out of that game, and I feel like Mouse might fall in the same department of like, this is really cool to look at. It's very distinct, but a very simple first-person shooter, and I'm cool with that. Nothing looks like this game, and so I'm very excited about that. Maybe Cuphead is the closest comparable, but I still think they managed to separate themselves because of the very different gameplay styles. Afterwards was a pretty big announcement that I have to admit I know very little on. In Subnautica II, releasing in early access in 2025, it's coming to Game Pass day one, which is really cool. I know Subnautica has a couple of entries, and it's like a crafting underwater game, but I'm not kidding when I say I know nothing about Subnautica. I just know it's a very popular series. It's getting a second entry now, early access next year, Game Pass, and given it's so well known and so loved, I think this is a good get. I will say that Xbox did a good job of like the games they were marketing versus the ones that got Game Pass. If you make that distinction there, what you're getting in Game Pass was what I thought was the highest quality or highest potential titles. And this one has very high potential, and based on previous entries, it also has high quality. So Subnautica 2 got announced. Animal Well is coming to Xbox. It's available today. I have not played Animal Well yet, but it reviewed really well. So that's out now if you want to go ahead and check that out. We got an anime game announcement in Eden Zero. I've seen this manga in my manga shop a ton of times before. I always look at it because I like the idea of like science fantasy. Like that always piques my curiosity. But then I looked at the character designs and I just don't feel it. Like that's such a big driver for me. Like I look at character design like in Free Run, I just like that's such great character design to me. Or like AOT is another one. Like it's got to spark curiosity yet feel anime, yet also feel, for me, a touch grounded. And I just think they do a really good job in those types of shows. Eden Zero just never really caught my attention with the manga, but it's popular and it's got its own show. And now it's got a game. And the game gives me One Piece World Seeker vibes of like, this is a kind of mid-anime game in the making. But here's the silver lining, okay? As an anime game connoisseur, here's the silver lining. Bandai has a monopoly on the anime game market, as we know. And so now we're starting to see some challengers step in. Konami is doing this one. That's interesting because we also saw Sega got Demon Slayer, and Demon Slayer is huge. And that Demon Slayer game, while it wasn't my favorite because it's another 3D anime fighter, it was still good quality stuff there. It was still very Ninja Storm coded. Visuals were great. And that was, again, Sega. Normally, that's very much Bandai's playbook there. So to see more competition creeping in on the anime game market is really cool. While this game doesn't look great, it's interesting to see how it's starting to spread to other publishers, which shows there is interest there and that finally we're going to start getting some competition. This isn't the biggest IP, but it's still something. So while the game doesn't look great, I think it's a good sign for hopefully anime games of the future. Our next trailer is Eternal Strands. This is coming to Game Pass early 2025. I thought this looked really cool. It's gimmicky for sure, but the idea that the world is your weapon is one that'll always be compelling to me. First, you see telekinesis throwing objects. I go, okay, cool. World is my weapon. Then you can set everything on fire. Oh, great. I can set my enemies on fire. I can set the ground on fire. Oh, and then you can freeze enemies. You can freeze limbs specifically and target those. And they're boss fights. And while the melee combat doesn't look great, and it seems like there's got to be some sort of crafting with the loot that these enemies are dropping, I do like the kind of sandboxy feel that this game is going for. So yeah, it definitely piqued my curiosity. It's a good Game Pass title in the vein of not bang for your buck, but in the other vein of I probably wouldn't buy this, but knowing it's here, I'm going to at least try it out. Mistfall Hunter is up next. This is a PvE extraction Souls-like game. Okay, hello. What a set of genre tags there. I think this could be pretty cool. We have a very crowded genre in the Souls-like. All of them share like the same camera angle. And I have to say this with my chest out a little bit. Not every game can be Lies of P, which is game one. You have the studio step out and pretty much challenge the throne of From Software. I adore Lies of P from top to bottom. One of my favorite Souls-like ever. If not, certain days, if you ask me, probably my favorite. Like, just the story and everything is magnificent. So that genre is crowding with really strong competitors around From Software. So you got to differentiate yourself. So you throw in extraction and co-op. And one thing that's really missing in the Souls-like genre is true, pure, invite your friend co-op gameplay. I know a lot of people want that in a FromSoft game, and I get it. It's not really the direct answer. But to have that kind of wrinkle there sets this one apart a little bit. So it looks interesting. It has my attention, and I'll be at least checking it out when it releases in 2025. Definitely, when you're mixing Souls-like and extraction in the same title, I got to at least see what's going on here to try and understand it because it's very distinct in what it's kind of putting in the blender. Wheel World. Hello, Wheel World. This is a interesting one as well. It's a art style that reminds me of Sable, but also Jet Set Radio. It's a game about bikes, but at the end, I kind of got this vibe like you have Breath of the Wild shrines, but it's also reminding me of Skate in that the world is sort of your playground to do tricks on when you want. And the vibe of the trailer and the music in the trailer was really good. So Wheel World, not usually my kind of wheelhouse, pardon the pun, but I kind of like what I saw here, and clearly my dog does too, because he is barking up a storm right now. Anyway, Wheel World is coming to Game Pass early 2025, so I'll be able to at least check it out, dip my toe in the pool, see what's going on there. Now, here's where I feel the showcase slips a little in the terms of quality and what's shown off, and I don't know what the excitement level for others will be, but for me, it was a little bit lower. I look at things like Phasmophobia. This is a 2020 game, and I know Xbox is getting it first on consoles, but to me, the Phasmophobia wave has been over for me. Not everyone. I know this is still a popular game, still gets updated frequently, but for me, it's over. Still great timing on the release. It's coming out October 29th, and this is a great Halloween game. Good time to drop it for sure. But for me, this is like, all right, a whatever announcement. Like, okay, Xbox is getting Phasmophobia first. This would have been cool, like, 3 years ago, when they were first really popping off the year after the pandemic. I get these things take time. It needed a lot of updates. So it's cool it's here, and I'm not going to really dunk on it too hard, but it just wasn't an exciting announcement. And I think that's where my issues with the showcase started to gather, was here towards the latter part of the show. Because then you get The Legend of Baboo. This is coming in 2025. And the best way I could really describe this game is I was looking at a very cheap Kenna Bridge of Spirits, which Kenna has just a wonderful look to it, and you can see like the budget on display. The animation quality is beautiful, and for a lot of people it reminded them like an old PS2 platformer style game. This game had a little bit of like Fable character model energy to me, but just when it came to the gameplay and the character design and everything, just was not lighting my fire at all, and it just did not looked very good. It just looked like a cheaper thing of something I already have access to. However, what brought me back up out of all of this was Wu Chang Fallen Feathers. Goes back to what I was saying as well, which is these are games I already knew about. I thought Wu Chang Fallen Feathers looked good. Now I'm like, damn, this looks really great. What a good get for Game Pass. And we talked about Lies of P earlier and how that was a big beneficiary of the Game Pass word of mouth speak, where that sold over 1 million copies. It did really well, and it's getting DLC, and I can't wait for whenever that DLC drops. But Lies of P got a lot of attention because people kept talking about it, because they kept trying it, and word of mouth is really spreading for it. And I hope Wu Chang Fallen Feathers gets the same rub, because I look across at the competition for Xbox. I look at PlayStation. I look at that Blade Zero game. I look at Black Myth Wukong. Like, these are games that typically, as we've seen, miss the platform. And so to see something like Fallen Feathers, I'm like, good, it's here. It's on Game Pass day one, and it looks really, really good. Really, really good. So I hope it gets the attention it deserves, because it looks fantastic, and this will be an easy day one for me, and 100% my game of the show. Just it looks, I think, leagues above in the terms of quality anything else that was on display. But the game that really got the most talk was the ender of the show. No one really expected a brand new Remedy game today, and no, it's no Alan Wake 3 or Control 2 reveal, but it is one that, if you've paid attention to Remedy, is a little bit expected in a multiplayer game. It's Firebreak. It's coming to Game Pass in 2025, and this is Remedy's first multiplayer game. Now, I'll admit, I saw this, and I thought, oh, Remedy first-person shooters. Oh boy, I am thinking of the campaign for Crossfire X, which I reviewed and is one of the worst things I have played to completion. However, this takes place after Control, another Remedy game I have not played, and it is 3-player co-op. Emphasis on that. It's not live service. That is why I'm keeping an open mind. If I'm being objective here and just looking at the quality of what's on display, I am looking at, a game that just does not seem to sniff the quality level of what I've come to expect from Remedy with Alan Wake 2, of what I've come to expect from Remedy with Control. What you do see here, though, is something that I think you should closely monitor from an industry level. By that, I mean that this is right now born out of what I view as necessity. For Remedy to continue to keep making the games that we know and love from them, they feel the need to do this stuff. That's also because they've taken multiple investments from Tencent, which is why I've been wary about their mobile and multiplayer push. And I'm going to keep an open mind, because they're saying a lot of the right things right now, and hopefully they do it right. But the reality is, if these things start to slip, as we've seen with Ubisoft, Tencent was the first to start circling around them and saying like, hey, sell to us, right? And we don't know the exact interaction there, but that's how I imagine it went. And then you see here with something like Remedy, where their games historically come out and don't sell very well, and they're taking investments from Tencent that I don't want this to happen, but if this doesn't go well and the games continue to not sell well at the gate, I know they get good long tail sales, but I don't know if that's the best way to run a business. I just worry about what happens when necessity is converted into desperation, what you get there. So Firebreak, I'm pulling for. I hope it's good. What I saw here did not light my fire too much because it's not really what I know Remedy for that has always made me interested in their games, because I love how they just rethink games. And I know Alan Wake 2 takes a lot of the ideas from Quantum Break, which I loved, and just evolves them further of this kind of mixture of like television and movies. And so I can't wait to finally play Alan Wake 2. But I just think they do a lot of different things here. And the difference with Firebreak is it kind of blurs in a little bit. It looks very similar to a lot of games out there, whereas most Remedy games I look at and go, oh, I don't really recognize that at all. That feels very different. So we'll see what happens here, but I know a lot of people are pumped for Firebreak. It's great. It's on Game Pass, 3-player co-op game, not live service. Great news there. I hope it does well. I think Remedy needs a kind of out the gate win, and they don't need to constantly fight with themselves of like, oh man, here comes another long tail sale, especially when Alan Wake 2 felt like that breakout moment of industry recognition. But otherwise, game looks okay enough where like I could see some cool co-op plays happening, like the way the weapons interact with the ground and the environment. Maybe there's something there that we'll kind of learn about with this game that brings it up a notch for me. But otherwise, that's the show. It was, like I said, decent. It was all right. It was kind of the same energy I had for the State of Play we recently covered, where it was like, yeah, nothing really got me out of my seat. Definitely what I did like in the case of the Xbox show were things that I already knew about. So all the new stuff, for the most part, fell flat for me, or just had intrigue because I didn't know enough about it. I look at Blindfire or Kronos The New Dawn, and I'm like, I don't really know much about these games at all. But nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, those are my thoughts. I look forward to hearing yours down below. Fire away. Other than that, take care of yourselves, and I will catch you in the next video. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.